Welcome back to the Witness Business Podcast. I'm Stephen Beckham. I have Kyle Martin, and today we have Kaitlin Mogentale, who some of you may know has been on Shark Tank with her product Pulp Pantry. So we're excited to talk about that. Kaitlin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Friday.
For sure. Happy Friday. Listeners may be listening whatever day of the week, but for us, it's Friday, and we're happy about
Exactly.
that.
Lean into it.
I was like, whoops.
No, all good.
We're
all
excited
good.
about Friday over here.
So to get started today, I have an icebreaker question for you. Kyle didn't want me to ask it. I'm going to ask it. I'm just doing it.
Still don't.
This is going to be very telling about how the interview is going to go. Are you a Nickelback fan?
It's Chad Kroeger Santana moment. I think it's ironic. I think Nickelback is ironic. So I wouldn't say it's like a love. It's more of an ironic love. Does that make sense? Like, you just kind of, you love to hate, but you also do love in a weird way.
Like when it comes on the radio, I'm going to sing along.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're also at the point where it's kind of nostalgic. No, well, I don't hate them. I don't. I mean, they've got some good songs. What can you say? I think that really we're kind of at the point though where it's like when we see the release date on some of these songs, you're like, oh, this is more nostalgic.
2001? Holy smokes!
I know the early 2000s. Though that was a time for music. I mean, I feel very lucky that I grew up listening to that music. But you guys should really listen to. I think it's Why Don't You, and probably Chad Kroeger, Santana. Everyone I show that song to, I'm like, guess who's, people are like, is this Nickelback? But it's a hit at 10 times. So that is the one song that I'll leave you with. That's like, okay, it was maybe a little later in Chad Kroeger's, not a Nickelback play, like his own solo thing. It's really good.
Hey, there you go. You come to the Witness Business Podcast for business advice, and you leave with music recommendations. So how about that?
Love it. Well, our real icebreaker question that we ask most of our guests is related to the podcast. That one I was listening to Nickelback today, and I was like, I wonder if our guest today is a Nickelback fan, so I had to throw it out there. But
what did you think I was going to say? I'm just curious. Like, did you think I was going to be
honestly,
a Nickelback fan?
I think most of the population is a low-key Nickelback fan, and something happened in culture, or I think there was a movie or something that came out that hated on Nickelback, and then suddenly everyone hated Nickelback, and I was like, but why? I kind of got on that train, but then like I was reflecting on it, and I was like, I kind of like Nickelback, and I think that's how most of the population feels. So I think I was hoping you'd say you like Nickelback.
There's also part of it where I think in the early 2000s, especially, like we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have Apple Music and things like that. So the radio stations were like, hey, you get these 6 songs. 2 of them are by Nickelback. Enjoy.
That's why it's nostalgic.
So true. That's why Kyle's pissed off.
That's a little strong. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So back to our real icebreaker question that is sort of related to the show. What would you say was your worst job that you've ever had, and maybe how did it lead to the success that you've seen in your life today?
I think the worst job I ever had was a greeter at the Shed Aquarium in Chicago growing up. I was in high school, so it's like, you don't really have that many options. And yeah, I mean, I would have to wear a collared shirt and khakis and just, greet people at the Shed Aquarium, help them find their way. My real dream was to go scuba dive in the fish tanks. But I felt like that was a good stepping stone, and actually ended up scuba diving at the Cal Science Center here next to USC. So my childhood dreams, Shed Aquarium, you follow your dreams, you start, from the ground floor. It wasn't exactly, I guess I wasn't sweeping the floors, but kind of close to it, the lowest rung there. And yeah, I ended up getting to dive in a fish tank. So things worked out. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the lesson there is sometimes like, you got to take some short-term it to see some long-term, to see your dreams come true in the long term. It's not all but instant gratification, right? So yeah, that's definitely a throwback. I actually kind of forgot about that, but thanks.
I love that was your dream too. Like, I'm going into this job so that I can do this.
Yeah.
Love
I think I was too hype in the shed aquarium take didn't end up happening, but we'll take the Cal Science Center a little bit small. Not as big.
Still not something you get to do every day, though.
No, definitely not.
You reminded me that I've been telling guests that my least favorite job was McDonald's, but this wasn't really a job. But I did. I played baseball in college, and one of our fundraisers was to go to the Joliet Speedway and push the elevator buttons for guests who were on the higher floors of the Speedway. And that was it. For 8 hours, I had to say what floor, and I would push the button. And that was just brutal. I mean, I'd much rather flip burgers than have to just stand there and push elevator buttons all day. It was the worst.
Did anybody ever frustrate you where you did the Christmas tree on them? Like, you just hit all the buttons?
Oh, like Elf? No, but I did that. Like, they did have big names like concerts before the race sometimes. So like, I got to push the elevator button for Darius Rucker. So that was cool. But still, it's just elevator buttons. It was pretty terrible.
Shameless name drop.
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah, I mean, gotta do it. So anyway, well, Kaitlin, welcome to the show. We're excited to hear your story. The theme of the podcast, as we've discussed, is sort of like, I've got a big idea and I don't know what to do next. Well, you had a big idea and you've turned it into a thriving business. So we want to kind of hear about that. We'll talk about your appearance on Shark Tank in a little bit. But can you kind of give us an idea? You had some pulp, it sounds like some leftover pulp from like a smoothie or a juice or whatever. And you had a big idea. Let's start the story there and kind of just give us a quick 2-minute rundown of like what has happened since then.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, like I said, from Chicago. So when I moved to LA, it was kind of a crazy thing to just realize how many juice chains were on every corner of Los Angeles. And I was at a friend's, never really had like thought too hard about it, but I was at a friend's house and saw Juice a Carrot and saw the amount of waste that was produced through juicing, and really couldn't believe that there was this legitimate industry that was thriving off of wasting like 50% of the produce that they were juicing. So I, the next day, called up a bunch of juice brands and asked them what they were doing with their pulp, and figured out that most of them were sending it to the landfill, because in a lot of places in the United States, and I think similar to, I mean, we're working on this, but it's still a work in progress. There's not a lot of resources for composting, especially in big cities like Los Angeles. Your local waste hauler doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure to compost. So that meant that this food was going to landfill, where it was a really big part of climate change. I think 8% of greenhouse gas emissions actually come from food waste in anaerobic environments like in landfill. So, I definitely, as someone who had a background in environmental science, became very fascinated by this issue of food waste and kind of uncovering more of our food industry and where waste was happening, and realized that it is a really big issue that kind of, both on one hand, 34% of actually solid waste that goes to landfills is food, the biggest portion. So food is actually the number one solid waste stream in landfills, which is super upsetting. But then also, I think, on the flip side, 9 in 10 Americans don't eat their servings of fruits, vegetables, or fiber. And so for me, it was really trying to figure out, is there something I can bridge these two issues, leverage kind of upcycled, overlooked ingredients that are still super nutritious and still safe for human consumption, of course. And that's why I'm always hesitant to talk about food waste, I think, in the same phrase as talking about what we're building, because at the end of the day, I think when we think food waste, you think of rotting food and you have this kind of gross picture in your mind, but the materials we're talking about are still, super fresh, super edible, and just happen to kind of have these gaps in our distribution and in our, of course, ability to kind of recoup the nutrition that's lost in side streams or byproducts or peels and stems and pulp, as you can imagine we're working with. So yeah, it was an interesting journey, being like a science background, like we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, scuba diving, and really seeing myself getting a master's in environmental science and really fighting the good fight for climate solutions. But it turns out that, building a business, I think, has a lot of potential to really have a massive impact on, kind of the culture that we live in. And I felt like building a consumer brand, especially, would be something really fun to use the platform to actually communicate some of these issues around climate and around food waste and get consumers engaged as well. So anyways, fast forward today, we have a line of veggie chips, organic veggie chips made from the byproducts of mainly the juicing industry. So we work with 2 national juice brands who sell in grocery. Every week they have about 80,000 pounds of the organic greens fiber that goes to waste. And we're still a small business, so we are only taking about 10,000 pounds of that. It's just a drop in the bucket. And if you think about it, 2 suppliers in California, there are so many more places and potential supplier partners across the United States that we continue to talk to and keep in touch with about, how we can build more progressive solutions for putting nutritious food back into our food system. So organic veggie chips is our start, and they're made from about 50% upcycled ingredients and provide about a quarter pound of vegetables in each bag, and 25 grams of fiber in a bag too. So we like to say that we're just trying to build like an authentic, genuine veggie chip in a category full of, I would say, potato starch with a sprinkle of vegetable powder counts as a veggie chip right now. So really trying to build something authentically, giving consumers probably what they're looking for when they're shopping for a veggie chip and looking for a healthier option.
So full disclosure, I have 2 daughters, 3 and younger than 3. And it wasn't until I purchased a bag of your chips and gave them to my daughters and then compared them to the veggie straws that I had in the pantry, where I was like, these aren't even close. Like, these are 2 completely different products. So, I mean, you said it well to say that this is just a sprinkling of vegetable color on potato starch. And I will also mention for all the parents of young kids out there that these chips were an absolute hit with my kids. Jalapeno, lime, and barbecue for the win. Those are my votes.
Super Bowl. Here we go.
So, yeah. So my question is, right, I'm just imagining how this goes. Like, for me, if this were my idea, if I saw this pulp issue and I was like, oh, what if I turn this into something? This is how it would go for me, right? Well, what if I turn this? I think you had the initial idea for like a carrot cake or something. That was your first thing. So, let me turn this into a cake. Oh, that wasn't very good. Well, what else can I do with this? Let me turn it into a chip. How the heck do I make a chip in general? Like, how are chips made? I don't know. Let's say I figured out how to make chips. I make a chip. This chip kind of sucks. Like, this is what I'm seeing. This is like the showstopper for me, right? I would have this idea and I'd be like, there are so many like blockades in my way that I'm just not even going to try. Or I might try once and fail, or, try the chip and it sucks and just be like, forget it. So did you encounter these mindsets, or how did you, I guess, overcome them? Especially not having like a background in making food. Like, you invented a food product. So can you tell me sort of how that whole process went?
I started in farmers markets, so definitely, understand the struggle of really having some pretty out there arguments. I think the benefit of farmers market was where being like, well, why don't you try? But also they were collaborative. So I had a lot of people who would be like, this was pretty gross, but why don't you try this? And, chefs, and of course, people who shop there who are super, handy and just love the idea. So definitely had a rough start. Like you said, I started in baking, and it was really a long process actually for me to land on veggie chips. I started baking, realized I wasn't really using enough of the pulp anyways, and it's not a very shelf life because we were using this fresh carrot and fresh beet and incorporating into the baked goods. There was really no opportunity to like sell them aside from pretty much the day they were made fresh. So we moved into dehydration, and that got even gnarlier, I would say. I was making some like green chips that were fully just the vegetable fiber with some seeds and some seasonings. Really disgusting. Also very high in fiber. My mom told me she lost 10 pounds in a week just eating the pulp chips. So I mean, those are the OG pulp chips. They were dehydrated. And truly, we had people who, of course, in Los Angeles, like, were obsessed with them. We sold them in Erewhon. We sold them at like the super healthy grocery stores where people were looking for only raw, vegan, dehydrated, like gluten-free foods. But for me, my vision was so much bigger. I really wanted to build a brand that could be a national retail brand and sit against, the aisle of veggie chips and be kind of going head to head with these potato starch incumbents, as you will. Okay, I realized recently incumbents isn't the right word. So maybe potato starch legacy brands. There we go. And so anyways, I definitely got to work. The first thing I did was first before that, I was actually working. So I had these dehydrated granolas and I had these dehydrated chips. And actually, because they were like a little sweet. They were sweet. They were made from carrots, beets, and apples. And they were, we used like a coconut sugar and coconut oil. They were super clean, pretty low in sugar, but still definitely more of a hit than the green crackers, I would say. So we went and found a local co-packer to make these granolas, and we actually commercialized them. We got them into 40 retail doors, and we're doing their farmers markets. But then, it became time to kind of grow beyond this co-packer. And that was when I started really having trouble, was actually reaching out to co-packers and basically a co-packer being a manufacturer and make for you. So I was looking for someone. I did not want to be in the kitchen personally. I'm not a chef by training. I was doing it all at that point just because of necessity. But and I actually did hire a pastry chef to help me as well, who's amazing, and really tweak the recipes and the formulas. But I knew that I did not want to be in the business of making the food, directly. So I was looking for a manufacturer that could help me scale. And in the end, I probably heard about 20 different manufacturers for cereals. And all of them told me they would never touch fresh ingredients. So they would never touch fresh carrots or, that was just something that they had never done before, and they weren't interested in really trying or innovating, especially for a brand that had no distribution and no real, I would say, legitimacy to it aside from these 40 retail doors. So I actually got to thinking, and I was like, well, what's a lower hanging opportunity for us? And one of the big things I think that I had to consider was throughput for a co-packer is really important because they make their money off of how many cases they can build in a maybe in a day shift. So I thought about it and I was like, well, I think the biggest challenge with the fresh ingredients is that they take a long time to dry. And so I started thinking about what are some formats that would be like a flat product. And so that's where chips came to mind. And of course, Artie had been doing those veggie chips, the gnarly ones, the ones that were all green. But I thought, there's probably an opportunity to get into this category, did more category research. And that's where I realized, oh my gosh, right now on the market, we don't really have a veggie chip. It's either a kale chip, which is $7 a bag for like 2 ounces. And it doesn't really function like a chip. You can't dip it. You can't, take it to go. It's so messy. Or you have these potato starch veggie chips, which aren't authentic veggie chips and aren't actually meaningful nutrition. You might as well just eat a potato chip at the end of the day. The nutrition labels are the same, and a potato chip probably tastes better. So I was like, here we go. Let's try to see what we can do in this category, make something, make something that's really more nutritious and of course has this sustainability story. And that's where I actually interviewed 50 co-packers and asked them if they would be willing to co-pack my crazy veggie chips, and found only 2 that said that they would work with me and with fresh ingredients, and then got to work with one of them to start building out the product. And yeah, it was really interesting because I would say, the learnings definitely were just kind of that strike, how many contacts you have to really reach out to in order to find even one yes. And I think the same goes for, fundraising, the same thing goes for sales. I mean, it's just pretty outstanding to think of how many people give up before they reach kind of that critical mass of just outreach that needs to happen in order to get to a place where, you know, you get a yes and you get someone who's willing to take a chance on you. So it was a long process to get to where we are today. And I will say, even when we launched the chips in 2020, we came out of the Target incubator November 2019 and did our dry run of or first R&D run, let's say, at the co-packer that year, 2019. Just kind of selling samples online to people who had met at the farmers markets and kind of built up this email list. And the product was really bad for about 2 years. It probably, like, it wasn't that it was unedible, but it was just like, it wasn't, you know, we didn't have the texture right. We didn't have I mean, there are still things that we struggle with today. Until recently, I just hired a R&D professional finally to like get their ex Frito-Lay guy who's amazing to really help me with the formulation. So it's always been a little bit of a push and pull, but I think, you know, it's like that idea, and it's really scary in food to launch with a minimum viable product. But, you know, I didn't want to spend all this time waiting and perfecting things. I really wanted to be out there building and learning from actually paying customers about, you know, what I could improve upon. So every process with building different products, trying different products, has been building out in public, I would say. Selling at farmers markets, selling to consumers online, and really just kind of taking all of those insights and making tweaks along the way to get to where we are today. So it's been a really long, winding journey to get here.
Well, let me say that I appreciate the fact that you were objective about it, of like, hey, this isn't where I want it to be yet, and let's work on it and get it there, right? But a question that I have for you, based off of what you were just describing there, you said you had 2 out of 50 people that you had kind of interviewed with that took you on. So for those other 48 no's, like, how did you kind of keep the faith to say, all right, you know, I'm going to keep at this. You know, this is still something that I believe in. Like, what was it that allowed you to kind of keep going in the midst of, you know, continued rejection? Because I think that most people, you know, kind of wilt in the face of rejection. So what was it that kind of helped you keep going?
I mean, I hate to say it because it's either a superpower or like maybe a curse too, but I'm a bit of a radical optimist. So I would say that, you know, I mean, that's always been something that I think, I mean, of course, is a struggle hearing no so many times, but I also feel like I mean, yeah, and sometimes I don't know when to quit. So that's the downside. That's the flip side of radical optimism. But I think at the end of the day, it really was just kind of having faith that, like, this idea deserves to exist in the world. This product deserves to exist in the world. And, you know, I mean, there's got to be someone out there that kind of sees it the same way I do. Not everyone is going to, of course, and that's why it doesn't exist yet. So kind of just that storyline, that track repeating in my head of like, this deserves to exist. And really having the like kind of self-assuredness to be like, it's worth fighting for. So yeah, so I think, I mean, there were of course moments where it's really tough, but you know what helps is just doing all of your outreach at once. So you can hear a bunch of no's in one go, and the yes, hopefully shortly after. Because yeah, it would suck if it was like drawn out over the year, but I think I did like a month-long sprint finding a co-packer, and that was kind of nice because you become a little bit more, a little less sensitive to rejection when you're hearing like 10 no's in one day instead of just one brutal no, death by 1,000 cuts kind of over a longer period.
Yeah, Kyle might tell you that if you want to get into entrepreneurship, maybe do door-to-door sales for a period of time, because that teaches you how to have an outgoing personality, and also you get a lot of doors slammed in your face. Kyle, am I right?
Yeah, there was a period of time where I did door-to-door sales for AT&T, trying to sell TV and internet and satellite packages. It was especially fun whenever they tasked me to like nice neighborhoods where these people did not want to put a satellite on their house. So yeah, it was more like, I mean, 2 and 50 would have been probably pretty generous.
That's for what I was dealing with.
But you know, it does it brings the idea also to mind for me that I feel like in sales and in life, a lot of times the no that you get may not just be outright no, it may also be not yet. So even by putting yourself out there, you're kind of planting the seed of like, all right, well, if I don't get the interaction that I'm looking for right now, maybe I can come through and harvest a sale or the interaction or what I'm looking for at a later point in time.
I mean, one of my favorite statistics, which is like post my notes and it's next to my computer, is just this idea. And I think it works. It's sales, it's fundraising, it's pitching co-packers, it's just anything. Pitch your vision. And I mean, I'll read a little bit of it, sorry, but 48% of salespeople never follow up with the prospect. 25% of people make a second contact and stop. 12% of people make only 3 contacts and stop. And basically the gist of it, when you get down to the bottom, is 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So I think just kind of keeping that number in mind has really helped me, like, you're going to have to just keep. It might be a matter of right place, right time. And so, even for me, it's looked like never taking rejection personally also. Cause I think at the end of the day, I mean, you gotta just gotta keep swinging and come up with creative ideas for how collaboration and even how kind of sales, like how can we, what is kind of our to help our retail accounts, or is there something like hey, we're a better dollar value trade up for the kind of veggie chips you have currently, so helping your store drive more revenue if we can trade in more sales for this premium product line. So there's just some ways I think that I've definitely learned, like, yeah, don't take rejection personally, and got to have some thick skin about it for sure.
Isn't there kind of an interesting part of it too, though, where you get so engrossed with your product or what you want to convey to someone that you've already thought out the whole conversation in your head, and it's like, oh wait, no, I gotta slow down and I've got to kind of unpack it for them. I've got to lead them to where I want them to go in my mind. I can't just assume they're automatically going to come to the same conclusion as me. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing is when you have like a dream collaboration in mind or a dream retail partner in mind. You're like, look, think about, for us, it was like in the beginning, we were like, oh, if we partner with every juice shop and we just have these chips and like we tell that story directly, hey, we have this pulp, they make these chips. And I kind of realized I was like, yeah, people aren't as jazzed about it as we are. So, but yeah, no, it's definitely hard when you're like so excited and passionate about something and you already kind of see how this could all come to life and just doesn't see eye to eye with you. That is definitely a bummer, but the good news is there are people out there who will see it and will be willing to take a chance. And so hopefully, those things can come sooner rather than later.
For sure. So I do want to talk a little bit about Shark Tank, right? So you went on the show, you got a deal, at least on screen, you got a deal with Mark. So I do want to ask, did that deal actually go through?
It didn't. It did not go through. And, I mean, kind of looking back, I'm like, that would be a regret, I would say, probably. I mean, I don't know. It works out either way. You figure it out. But he's so great. So I know there's a lot of potential for a follow-on from a with their investments. But I think, people definitely value those names. And of course, there are ways that I think any investor is going to really help propel your business, whether it's like high-level introductions and whatnot. And so I know people who've worked with Mark from Shark Tank and not from Shark Tank just have such a great experience and kind of reverence for him too. So that's probably a regret.
Can you speak to how he kind of helped propel you onward, whether that be connections or advice or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, he had a team that was helping their Shark brands, just whether it's like introductions to retailers or press. And honestly, just even like being there via email, I mean, he was super accessible, and, anytime there was a question or needed advice along the journey of kind of negotiations and whatnot, it was like, he was super responsive and willing to provide that feedback and loop the correct person in who could help even further. So, I think he really puts like a solid team behind his Shark Tank investments, which is great. And to make sure that they're kind of fully realized. And that's something I don't know that every shark does, but is a really awesome resource, of course, for brands that do move forward with him.
So Deal or No Deal, I know that Shark Tank is great for at least advertising, right? So a lot of companies report, I went on Shark Tank, I didn't even get a deal, and my sales shot through the roof. So would you say that, did you see any uptick in revenues following the show? Could you give a little insight on kind of what revenues were going into the show and how they increased and maybe what they are today?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we went into that year, we finished the year with just under 500,000 in revenue, and that was in 2021 when we filmed. And then in 2022 when it aired in May, and I remember we were like, I mean, when it aired, I think I was at a point where I was like pretty much out of money, right? Like I was like, I don't know how many months I have left to live. This is crazy. I think I had started kind of the fundraising process privately, which I just had started way too late. I mean, I think I've always thought of myself as building a business without investor capital. So really for me, like Shark Tank was definitely something. I went there because I was like, I would love it if I got a deal, but not that I needed a deal at the time. I really was honestly just like, I've always watched Shark Tank growing up. So it was just a dream to be on there. It's like, finally I have a business and it's like a bucket list item. I got to do it, you know? But yeah, when it aired, I think within the first like couple days we did, or maybe like the first weekend, it was over 80,000 in sales, just under 100,000, I remember. And then over the course of the month, it was over 200,000 in revenue just on our site, which was great. It's definitely not as much as I think I had heard of founders who aired in like the heyday 2014, 2015, maybe when Shark Tank was kind of at its peak. But it was super impactful because it meant that I was, you know, back in business, basically. I was able to go back and produce more product and keep it going. And through the year, I mean, it had a halo effect. It affected like our Amazon sales, of course. It affected our Thrive Market sales and so many of the retailers that we in person too. Like, I mean, we do demos at our Whole Foods in Southern Pacific region. And of course we have Central Market in Texas area. So Dallas and Austin. And whenever people were doing demos, they said, oh my gosh, you know, I met like 3 people today who saw your episode on Shark Tank and couldn't believe that they're finding the product in store. So it had a massive halo effect. And I think we finished the year in 2022 with over $1 million in revenue. So it definitely, you know, Shark Tank wouldn't be all of that, of course. We had some other really lucky wins that year and things that worked out, but it was definitely a massive impact, and was something that, again, was like, I mean, it just happened at the right time. It actually also aired on May 6th, and my birthday was May 7th. And so that was also lucky timing.
Happy birthday to you.
Thanks.
At the time. I'm sure that was a nice birthday present.
Yeah.
How did 2023 go?
2023 was actually pretty rough, I would say. So we're looking at less revenue than 2022, which is always an unfortunate thing. I mean, also probably a lot of that just being that we're not seeing the same, you know, impact on D2C from Shark Tank, but still, I mean, seeing growth in retail, which has been really good for us. And we're actually, yeah, I mean, more on that to come for sure, but we've been growing through the West Coast and growing distribution into the Pacific Northwest, into the Bay Area. And honestly, out of that too, just building the awareness was super impactful for us to be able to share our story on national television and use those clips in our marketing. And I think it just helps people connect to kind of the brand and what the vision and the story is all about too.
So you had talked about all the different interviews that you did with the co-packers and everything like that, but can you kind of talk a little bit about what it has been like trying to break into that retail space? Because, you know, I have this idea, I have this product and pitch it to you, but I sure want to walk into, you know, your Kroger or your H-E-B or your Meijer, whatever your regional grocery chain is. I want to walk in there and I want to see my product on the shelf. Can you talk about what that's like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the cool thing is when you're building something that's like very innovative, very new and different, a lot of retailers are definitely willing to give it a shot. So we've had some really lucky breaks. I think in the beginning, like we had Target bring us into 400 stores coming out of the Target incubator. We had, you know, Whole Foods bring us into only 12 local stores, but then eventually we did get to break into the full Southern Pacific region. Thrive Market was one of our first retail partners as well. And so, I think people really believed and wanted to invest in this upcycled category, even though maybe the consumer awareness wasn't quite there. Buyers were like, we want to see this, this change in the industry, we want to move towards offering more sustainable brands in our portfolio. I think the challenge though in retail is actually getting off the shelf. So for us, it was like, easy to get in the door, but then 6 months might go by and if you haven't really invested the marketing and I mean, it's a really expensive business. I think I was so naive when I started the business to realize like you need working capital for inventory and working capital to grow too. Like if you want to grow into a new retailer, there might be fees to get on shelf. There might be distribution fees. There might be, free fills, even like retailers who ask for free product to secure your place on shelf. And those were things I definitely didn't account for. Again, like that's where it was kind of just being naive and kind of not knowing what I didn't know. But I think at the end of the day, the hardest thing I would definitely say is like saying no when you know you're not ready for retail. Like if there are retailers that you just know, I mean, I think I look back on Target and I'm like, man, what an amazing opportunity that was. But like 2.5 years later, yeah, we got pulled from Target shelves with a new buyer and we had 3 buyer transitions in a period of 3 years. And we just never were able to support them with the marketing investment they really needed in order to drive awareness about the brand. And so we're this new brand on shelf and we're really just relying on kind of our presence on shelf to sell the product, which I've learned is very naive and is something that often doesn't work out. And so I think really like what I see smart brands doing today is before even building a retail presence, it feels like building that pull online and building like a really strong online community is really important because I think those can be the people that pull you off the shelf in retail and, build that word of mouth in retail too. So I think, yeah, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? Because you want to grow, you want to be able to, build revenue and all that, but you also don't want to have the hard lessons of just, you definitely don't want to burn a bridge with a retailer. And I think a lot of retailers are willing to give you more chances, but you never know. And I think that sales cycle is really, it takes a long time, right? Like some of these retailers only review a category once a year. So they might review chips in September and it's for next year's August reset. And so you have that kind of full year, 2 years really that you've been waiting, right? Like we're in February right now. Oh man, my next Whole Foods category review isn't until, let's say it was like September and it wouldn't reset, until August. So it's like it is a waiting game with retail, but you also want to make sure that you're kind of ready when you get the green light and that you're ready to come out of the gate supporting with marketing and selling that product off shelf.
So I want to backpedal just for a second because I have this question, and so I'm imagining others would have this question too, or maybe I'm just a little slow at this. But like you mentioned approaching manufacturers and approaching retailers. What is that process? Is that just like going to a website or Googling like manufacturers, chip manufacturers, and then you just like find their contact and you shoot them an email and say, hey, I have a new chip idea. Can you manufacture it? Or like, what is that process? What does that even mean to approach a retailer or to approach a manufacturer?
I mean, my biggest suggestion for sure, any industry would be like, go to your local trade show and, or go to like, the biggest trade show you can kind of find in the industry to actually talk directly to potentially people who are private labeling. So maybe people who already make their own products and might be willing to kind of private label manufacture yours. But even actually just for education, like meeting mentors in the space who can, because I think a lot of co-packers really don't have a great website presence and there's not really a way to find them online. So a lot of the time it's going to have to be asking people who exist in the industry, if they know of co-packers for this specific product line or whatever else. And I think that's really the challenge, is that a lot of these people operate on word of mouth. They don't really want to be found online. And so that's where I think building a network and kind of, showing up in the industry is super important. And I remember like when I first got started, something I wish I did sooner was, even than I did, was actually go to the business school before a trade show that we have here called Fancy Food Show. And they had this kind of 1-day business boot camp. And it was just for newcomers in the industry to learn the lingo, learn how to build a sell sheet, learn how to find co-packers, learn how to, calculate costs and how to build that in. So I would say like going to that kind of a education seminar could be really, really helpful, just to make sure that you're not, I think people sniff out that someone's really inexperienced, and sometimes they're like, oh, this is too much work, or it's going to take too much time for me to coach this person or whatever. And there, of course, are going to be some amazing people who are really successful in their career and want to coach and want to like be more of a support. But what I found is just, you got to show up, like know your stuff in some way. And so putting in the work to actually educate yourself before like reaching out is probably gonna, pay itself back in spades. So I would definitely recommend like going to trade shows, build a network, asking the dumb questions in person so that, you can build that rapport. And then just like seeking out mentorship as kind of key ways to kind of build an understanding of the manufacturing landscape and who you can tap into.
And just so nobody thinks that Kaitlin is just talking the talk here, she definitely walks the walk, because she's been kind enough to join us just on the tail of getting back from another trade show that she attended. So she doesn't just talk about it, she's about it.
So, I had a question. I'm gonna have to edit this out, because it's gone. Give me 1 second.
No worries. And I do jump off at 1:45. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, then that's a great place then to transition, because we have a listener question that we want to jump into, and then we'll wrap it up. Kyle?
Yeah. So for our listener question, we take submissions online. So please send any questions that you have for our guests at Kyle at witnessbusiness.com. And today's witness business question is, how do you want to continue to see the food space evolve? Food waste and sugar additives seem to be real problems just for the sake of profitability. How can there be a change of course, and how do you want to be a part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that right now there's been a lot of studies that just show that healthy food is actually so much more expensive than processed food. I'm actually one of my tabs 2023 did about I would say that the biggest things for me have been thinking about building greater access to fruits, vegetables, fiber. Of course, is inherent in kind of what we're building and kind of the key places that we focus as a business. But the questions are, how can we build collaboration across the industry? Because fortunately, I mean, building a small emerging brand is of course very daring and challenging feat. It requires a lot of capital, as we've talked about. And I think with that, I look and I say, how can these bigger CPG, conglomerates play a role in helping to uplift healthier choices in our food system? And I definitely feel that hopefully businesses that can start to gain more consumer traction. But at the end of the day, as a society, we really believe in the United States that our food should be super cheap, and we don't put a high value on, I think, healthy, nutritious food that is also regenerative, right? Like giving back to kind of our soils, and sustainability is not something we're really willing to pay a price premium for yet. And so it's just a question of like, how to reduce the government subsidies and I think some of the other things that play into making processed food so ubiquitous across our food system and so cheap. And it's causing massive health impacts that aren't accounted for in the price of food. So I guess it's kind of an open-ended question, because part of me is like, could there be a tax on unhealthy, is there an unhealthy food tax? I don't know. Like, could emerging brands that are bringing healthy food, farmers who are bringing healthy, fresh food into our food system tap into more tax credits or subsidies to help make that food more affordable for folks, or access distribution? I just question a lot of the economics. I feel like the economics of our food system right now are kind of where the challenge is, because at the end of the day, consumers vote with their wallet. So I do believe that people should be paying more for better quality food, and that we should normalize, spending more of our income on healthy food. I think there's a stat that's like 7% of the U.S. Growth. 7% of our income as Americans is spent on food, whereas if you look at countries in Europe, it's probably double that. Where maybe healthy food is, again, valued a bit higher, or maybe there are other factors too. Of course, anyways, sorry, I'm going down the rabbit hole, but I do just think that, of course, it's such a privilege to have access to healthy, fresh, nutritious food, and it shouldn't be that way. So it kind of goes back to just like, how can we be part of the change by advocating for better policies? How can we be part of the change by making truly better quality, nutritious products more accessible? But again, emerging business, we're also struggling to survive. So it's not always possible to make a product that's hyper affordable compared to a bag of potato chips. And people get really mad about that. But I think it's like, we also got to survive, because otherwise we're not doing any good either. So it's a big hairy mess. But I think like this, like Eat Lancet report is more focused on sustainability. There's a lot of really good thinkers out there, but it's just, and how do we all kind of advocate for collective change? And I think a lot of it, unfortunately, like it ends up being supporting your local farmer, and just kind of finding other ways that we can kind of do our work day to day. But
yeah, I actually had a similar idea about like subsidies and about, I'm not an economist by any means, but I pitched the idea to my friends, just like, what if we subsidized healthy food or something like that? And everybody's like, that would never work.
It should, because we're subsidizing unhealthy food.
I agree. It should. Yeah, exactly. So I'm in agreement with you, but I don't know how we get there. So any listeners that want to comment, how do we get there? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a multifaceted problem, but what I can tell you is that we're excited to see how you're going to be a part of it. So can you just real quick kind of give us an opportunity to see where we can learn more about you, where people can purchase your products and things like that?
Yeah, so Pulp Pantry, we don't personally sell on Amazon, but we do have some, I would say, great third-party sellers who do sell there. So that's a good place to look. Amazon, our website, of course, we always prefer if people buy directly from us on our website. So that would be pulppantry.com. And then we also have a store locator in our on our website as well. So people can search for us in local stores or suggest a store they want to see us in. And we do pitch from that list for you. Suggest a store we're not already in. We would love to pitch them.
And you're on Instagram.
Yes, and on Instagram at Pulp Pantry. On TikTok's starting out, so let's see how it goes. At Pulp Pantry there too. And YouTube, at Pulp Pantry. There you go. At Pulp Pantry everywhere.
Awesome. Well, we know you got to go, so we won't keep you. But Kaitlin, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate having you, and I think your this episode will be very inspiring to a lot of people. So very grateful.
Thank you guys for having me. Did you see that? So it's like earthquake thing. Did you see it? You didn't see it all shaking? I was like, oh my God.
I didn't. No. I didn't notice it, but you are in California.
Yes,
so
I'm about to just look it up because I'm like, I've never experienced that level of shaking before. So let's see.
Pulp Pantry, earth shaking.
Earth shaking.
Interesting way to close the episode.
Yeah, we did just have an earthquake. You guys witnessed it. 4.7 in magnitude. 4.7 earthquake in Thousand Oaks, California.
Wow. Live on the Witness Business Podcast. There you have it. We just had an earthquake.
Oh my God. When does that ever happen? How many podcasts were recorded while an earthquake was happening?
This is how we go viral.
That's amazing. I can't believe you didn't see. I was like, this is shaking so much. And I was like, I'm trying not to freak out, but there's definitely an earthquake happening right now.
We just thought you were excited.
But yeah, I was shaking the table.
Shaking her computer.
Oh my God. Well, guys, let's hope let's be thankful it's not not the big one.
For sure.